Do we want to do a sound check before the meeting starts?
Can
Can
you hear?
everybody hear?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear
all
me
right.
now?
Yes.
Can folks hear me now? Okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay, I've got 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work session and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. First is a discussion of the formal agenda. Do we have any questions or comments on tonight's agenda? Okay, and then we do not have meetings. No meeting next week, no meeting Christmas week. Our next meeting will actually be January 7th, correct? Okay, and we'll have our regular cadence in January. All right, any other comments or questions on agendas? We'll move on to our topic on the work session, which is the draft 2026 State Legislative Guide. And Amanda Rapinchuk, our management and policy analysts. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
And I can't hear. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
Amanda, I think we can share. Can you hear okay? I'm not sure if the chair can, but looks like all the other commissioners can hear right now. So, okay.
Okay. Well, good evening, Chair, members of the board. Thank you for having me. As you know, the Oregon Legislature convenes annually in Salem for legislative session. In odd number years, there's a long session which can last up to 160 days, and this includes the adoption of the state's biennial budget, which is the session we just had. And then in even numbered years, there's the short session, which is limited to 35 days and typically focuses on budget adjustments, policy refinements, and urgent or time-sensitive issues. So the 2026 legislative session is a short one and will be taking place within a very challenging fiscal environment. Recent statewide revenue projections point to an $888.2 million reduction in anticipated general fund resources for the current biennium. This decline reflects a combination of slower economic growth at both the national and state levels and the effects of recent federal fiscal policy changes, including H.R. 1. These conditions suggest fewer discretionary dollars, greater scrutiny of fiscal proposals, and a continued emphasis on maintaining core services while finding ways to stretch existing resources. So in preparation for the session, county staff have put together a draft legislative guide, which you may have noticed this mirrors the same format as the guide from this past session. It's a draft document outlining the county's guiding principles, engagement framework, anticipated legislative priorities, and key dates for the session. It's intended to serve as a living guide for the county and CFM advocates as we coordinate our advocacy efforts. And the guide will continue to evolve as needed and under your board's direction. So for the next few minutes, I was thinking that I can go over some of the information presented in the guide, highlight proposed legislative priorities, and then turn it back to your board for any feedback that you may have for staff or any questions about the session. Does that sound good?
sounds good.
Perfect. So towards the end of the guide, there's a list of some key dates, which are either identified as confirmed or estimates. We're waiting on the official 2026 legislative calendar to be released. But on Monday, I saw the calendar on OLIS, which is the state's essentially online platform, was updated. So I imagine the official PDF of that calendar should be coming out shortly. Most importantly, the session is scheduled to begin February 2nd and will end no later than March 8th. I just want to make a quick note that the end date that I put on the draft guide is incorrect. I accidentally put March 9th. That should be March 8th. So just a side note. In regard to the number of bills we can expect, it will be significantly less than what we saw this past session. During long sessions, lawmakers have no limit on the number of bills they can file, which is why there were more than 3,300 bills introduced in 2025. Fortunately, short sessions do have bill limits, so we'll not see anywhere near that same volume. So for this session, both the governor and chief justice of the state Supreme Court can file up to 3 bills. Members of the House and Senate are allowed up to 2 bills each. Each legislative committee may file up to 3 bills. And then there are a few exceptions to these limits, which include the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, the Senate President, the House Committee on Rules, and Conduct Committees. That being said, given the current fiscal landscape and the short session's limited timeline, we anticipate a more narrowed policy agenda. The co-chairs of the Ways and Means Committee have signaled that the legislature will prioritize measures that address projected funding gaps and urgent needs and that align with existing commitments. Also, they're essentially not interested in new spending proposals unless they result in long-term savings. And so, as you know, last month, state agencies were required to provide the legislature with 5% reduction options, along with lists of programs created since July of 2021. A few weeks ago, during legislative days, state agencies then presented on what they had submitted. And at this time, it's unclear what specific reductions the legislature is considering or kind of narrowing in on, but both CFM and county staff are continuing to monitor that closely. In regards to keeping your board updated during the session, I'll be providing you a new internal tracker with bills relevant to the county as a tool for updates in real time. But I did want to get your feedback on regular legislative updates to your board. During the long session, staff provided brief updates at almost each board work session, and I'm wondering if you'd prefer that same format or more of an as-needed basis since the scope for the upcoming session is more narrowed. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission. I don't know that we need them every meeting, but Commissioner Thompson?
Well, the political junkies in the House love those, sir. So it's kind of like dessert.
Would you like to have them every meeting, Commissioner Thompson? Okay. Commissioner Banks?
I'm not adverse to every meeting, but if we're overloaded, keeping it to the topics of county concern.
Commissioner Webb?
I would like them at every meeting because it's important, first of all, because the short session just moves so quickly. And it also helps with my AOC committees to know exactly what we need to be espousing at AOC meetings, which are usually more often than ours during the short session. So you can't give me, I'm one of those brain hogs who, who can't be overburdened with the data.
All right. The more the better, Commissioner Webb.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wakua?
Yeah, I'm all for the information. I think time permitting, I think if our schedule's bogged down, we should streamline a little bit if there's nothing really to report back on. But otherwise, I'm pretty fluid with it. Whatever.
Yeah, sounds good. So it sounds like we'd like to have it every meeting and provide the updates accordingly. When do we start them? Are we starting them at the session or starting in advance of the session, or how we want to do this? Commissioner Banks?
I'd like to start advance the session just so that we can align our agenda of where the county wishes to engage the most.
Commissioner Thompson?
I think as soon as possible. I
read the Oregonian today, and here's a letter from Jason Brandt talking about how we're trying to cripple his industry, and they produce jobs and revenues. So I think the session has already begun, and it'll be good to get us lined up and functioning.
Anyone else? Okay, sounds like we'll go ahead and start, first meeting in January, start doing updates and have those every week. And I know that things do move fast, especially in the short session. So I think it is wise to stay on top of it. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then last, I just wanted to touch on the legislative priorities section of the draft guide. This time it's organized into 3 different categories. We have primary initiatives, which notes legislative concepts that the county is directly engaged in, high priority session driven issues. And this includes high priority items for the county that we're anticipating either we know for sure are coming up or may come up in the session. And then other high priority items, which includes essentially other high priority items that we at least want to acknowledge or keep on our radar, essentially in the queue in case they do come up in the session, or just making sure that we're continuing to communicate that priority. And since your board is already familiar with the issues that are outlined in this section, I don't have to bore you with going through each one, but I am interested in any feedback you may have or any questions about a particular item.
Any questions? Commissioner Banks.
No question per se. I just mentioned this to County Manager today, and I wanted to mention it to the group as a whole. I would really like for us to come out in support of 4-H and Extension. They're being requested to have a 7.5% decrease in their budget, and so 4-H Extension is obviously extremely important to our community. And then the other one that I'd really like to keep our eyeballs on is the education, because CTE potentially could be more impacted than they already were in the previous session. So just hoping that my fellow commissioners will see the value in protecting our CTE programs and also advocating for a 4-H extension.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. I agree with that 100%. Any other comments? I just want to say how helpful this is. I think this legislative guide is terrific, and having this widely distributed is a good idea too, because it lets everybody know, we're on the same page, and these are all very valid, matters of importance for us, very high priority items. And well, not all of them high priority, but at least a lot of them are high priority items. And I do appreciate the fact that this is boiled down in this 10-page document. Very helpful for me to track throughout the session, and then also for others.
Chair Quillo, members of the board, if I might real quick.
Yep.
I think part of what I think will be challenging for all counties this next session are some of the underlying principles that have been part of our legislative plan for a long time, and that is, not being expected to backfill state reduced funding, not having additional unfunded mandates from the state, as the state departments have been looking at ways that they can reduce money. Some of the things that are on the list are things that would reduce revenues to local governments. And so I think as we go through the session, we'll have to watch those things really closely. I think this session, like a lot of short sessions is there's going to be a lot of defense played more than offense. And I think most offense is going to be played by the state as they navigate some of the significant state issues. But there is going to be a lot of pressure to reduce some of the revenues that go to local government. So I just want to share that with the board.
Yeah. Thank you, County Manager.
And also, Chair, if you wouldn't mind, Amanda, can you just kind of go over the capital project side of it real quick? The capital project side's not just a state issue, it's also a federal issue as we talk to our federal lobbyists. We have been successful getting some money both at the state and the federal level. As you may know, we received just over $1 million grant from Business Oregon for the Westport Ferry Road, and then we got a set aside of 1.1 or an earmark for $1.1 million for the 911 communication system, which is the hardware for that system. That obviously has not moved anywhere at the federal level because they're still on continuing resolutions. But there is a placeholder at the federal level. So we'll be searching for additional capital funds for some of these projects, but I just thought we could just go over them real quick, just so your board has some awareness on those priorities.
Of course. So on your list, that first one is a project that Don mentioned, the public safety radio equipment and 911 consolidation. Again, there's one funding opportunity that we're waiting to hear back from in terms of federal appropriations, but this is still one that's on the list, and whether that means looking out for bills during the session that this funding could be relevant to this project, or continuing to apply for federal appropriations. And our federal affairs team through CFM Advocates is also working on a federal agenda that's looking specifically at projects that they think would be most competitive in applying for federal appropriations requests for this next cycle. And so this is one of those projects that will probably continue to be on there. The next project, the Westport sewer improvements. Don kind of mentioned a little bit about this one. County ARPA funds have gone to support this. And really there's a lot more funding that's needed to complete the project and take the next step to do the biggest phase of the work. Then it's followed by 3 different bridge projects that would need to be the reconstruction of each of these bridges. They're kind of in order of priority in terms of lifeline routes. And right now, Public Works is continuing to perform the maintenance to keep these bridges operational. But it's really important that we look for the funding now in order for the reconstruction that's needed. And then the Old Milltown Road crossing is a component of the Westport Ferry Road project. And so previously we had talked about the Westport Ferry Road, but sometimes depending on where you are in a project and when the type of funding that a project can be eligible for. So in terms of where we are in the planning process, certain federal funding opportunities wouldn't apply. But in narrowing it down to this section and this project alone, which is a component of it, we would potentially be eligible in terms of where it's at currently. Do you have any questions about any of those projects?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, that's about $20 million in asks from the state, but these are all necessary infrastructure projects that we need in this county. And I mean, your priority is probably based on where you live in the county and whether you're impacted by driving over a bridge or driving over, if you live in Westport, and certainly that's your high priority issue, but they're all necessary. We have aging infrastructure in our county, and there's no way around it other than we need resources in order to fix up what's already in existence. But I appreciate you outlined all of these projects very well and summarized them very well. And I think we can definitely use this to communicate the need with our folks in Salem. Any comments or questions on the capital projects? Again, I think this is a great document. It's really nice to be able to see it all boiled down into this report and be able to share this with others and let everybody know where we stand. Any other comments, questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Amanda. Great work.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, we've got time to kill. Looks like we've got about 40 minutes until our regular meetings. We don't have anything else on our work session. So we'll reconvene in about 40 minutes and start with our regular meeting. Commissioner Bangs, you had a question?
Do you want us to stay logged in and just go off camera until 6? Teresa?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
could do that. Okay. Thanks.